McDaniel's first pitch, tagged deep into left field. And it is gone. It gets out in a hurry for Hopvee. A 2-run homer makes it 5-1. Fresno in the 7th. Third homer of the year for Hopvee. They've all come from the right side. Hey, California, welcome to In the Den, your inside look at the Fresno Grizzlies. I'm Tim Slack. Well, the Grizzlies were on the road this past weekend at Lake Elsinore, and they had one of their best road trips of the season as they secured a series split by Friday. We're going to have highlights this week on In the Den, as well as catch up with one of the first Grizzlies that were affiliated with the Colorado Rockies, Zack Veen. See where he's at after his major league debut. But first, Fresno is leading the California League in defense. They have committed the fewest errors of any of the 8 teams in the league. And how do they do that? We're going to talk to Conlan Maguire, a glove aficionado and expert, the clubhouse manager for the Fresno Grizzlies. That's right now here on In the Den. In the Den, we are in the Fresno Grizzlies clubhouse with the guy who lives here, Conlan Maguire, the Grizzlies clubby for the last 4 years. And the Grizzlies are the best fielding team in the California League. So in order to figure out why, we have to figure out what goes into a glove. Why is that so important? And so many of these guys are playing multiple positions. And for all the Fresno State fans, they know Tommy Hopvee. He's playing outfield, he's playing infield. He's supposed to be catching a little bit as well. What goes into maybe a player like that or some of our other guys in choosing a glove, especially in a position that they may not play all the time?
So a lot of times guys like that will have multiple gloves, different sizes for different positions. Usually in the infield, you don't go bigger than 12 and a quarter.
Inches.
Yeah. And so for things like first base, you're going to have a bigger glove that's going to be made to like scoop stuff. Catcher's mitts usually are only like one size or one shape, I should say. So, when a guy has a catcher's mitt, it's only one size for that one position and everything. And then outfield, you're going to go, a lot bigger, obviously, because you got to track down balls that are hitting the gap. You're going to be like reaching for diving plays and everything like that. So every little inch counts whenever it comes to something like that.
Jimmy Obertop, one of our new guys, catcher, first baseman, one of the things I noticed about his first base glove, it's a little bit thicker. What has changed recently in terms of padding and just material for first baseman?
So padding and stuff like that is all usually personal preference. It doesn't really have anything to do with like today's technology or anything like that. Because, there's some guys that like to have really thin heel pads. They like a lot of control over their gloves and everything like that. Usually the thicker you get, the less control or like the harder it is to break in. So you kind of lose a little bit of that sense of control and stuff like that. So it all usually just depends whether you want to have, like slightly more protection or you're willing to give that up to be able to control the glove and secure the ball better and stuff like that.
So there's a function to the form
yes.
in so many cases, except sometimes if you're a pitcher. Why are pitchers almost like peacocks?
Well, a lot of times what you want to focus on as a pitcher is concealment of the baseball. So the biggest thing for them comes in the web. A lot of pitchers like to use like closed webs. We call them like two-piece webs, where it's 2 pieces of leather that are connected at a middle point. You can even get one solid piece. There's a lot of things like trapeze that it's just laces covering everything, because like a lot of times, if they're switching grips on from a fastball to a changeup or curveball or something like that, and you can see through it, as small as it looks, these guys are professional batters and they can pick up on stuff like that. So they want to try to conceal it as best they can.
And the higher you get, the more they're looking for tips and edges and things that they can figure out there. You get a chance to talk to these guys about the types of gloves that they wear. You've been doing this for 4 years in the home clubhouse. How did you get your start, and why is this such a perfect fit for just your skill set and your passion for the game of baseball?
Well, I've always been a baseball guy. I played up until college, and it's just like I didn't honestly know that this area of the game was even accessible. I started here with the Grizzlies in 2019 as just a game day staff. I was hired in the operations department, and the following year in 2020, I was actually supposed to be the parking manager, but COVID shut everything down. And the following year after that, our visiting clubhouse manager moved to the East Coast. And so my boss at the time was like, hey, we need a visiting clubby. Do you think you can do it? And I said, well, I haven't done anything clubhouse related ever, but I'll give it a shot. And I did good enough that year that the following year, the Rockies contacted me and said, hey, we're making some changes in our levels and everything like that. And we want to bring you from the visiting side to the home side. So I've been on the home side ever since.
Well, it seems like it's a perfect fit because you have a passion for baseball equipment, but more specifically baseball gloves, and you are a baseball glove connoisseur. How did this hobby of yours, first of all, tell the folks how many gloves you own?
Approximately 50, which is way too many. I know I only have one hand that I can wear it on, but it's like you said, I'm a collector connoisseur. It's almost like an art form for me.
Do they feel neglected that you're not using them on a consistent basis?
It's funny. I will just like randomly walk into the room that I have all of them on, and I'll just start putting some of them on. Just it's like I haven't worn this one in a while, and I'll just throw it on and walk around the house or sit down and watch TV and just have it on my hand.
So talk about your collection. What do you look for in terms of the gloves that you have? And we brought some to show off maybe some of the differences and some of the things that get you excited.
Yeah, so I began collecting in 2017. I stopped playing about 2015, 2016, and it was just like a way to keep me in the game. I knew that I wasn't going to be playing anymore, and for some reason, this area, like gloves in general, just fascinated me. And so, I really started to try to look for things that were like unique and stuff that like not everybody had. Since 2017, I have kind of like really honed in on a particular colorway, which is like the term that we use in like the glove community to describe like what colors the gloves are. And so my favorite is a combination of what's known as black and blonde leather. And that's kind of why I have like branded myself. My Instagram is Madtown Leather, which it stems from, I was living in Madera, California at the time, and Madera is known as Madtown. Yep. So Madtown Leather, I've kind of self-acclaimed as the black and blonde king, because for like 5-6 years straight, I was getting nothing but black and blonde. But now, I've kind of branched out a little bit. I look for, like I said, things that are a little bit harder to get. Since I've been collecting for so long, it's kind of like, what can I get now that wasn't accessible to me when I first started collecting or before I made all these connections and stuff like that. So, yeah, just kind of like, I've moved into like a lot of custom stuff. I don't really, I try to get things that I'm going to keep for a long time. There's a lot of people out there that, just get stuff and then they try to move it, do it like reselling and things like that. That's never why I did it. I've always had an appreciation for it. And, yeah, I just try to, have things that not a lot of people can say that they've ever had.
Well, let's show off some of these. You talk about the black and blonde. So start with maybe a more classic version, right?
Yeah. So this was actually the very first, like high-end glove. It wasn't the first, glove that I ever owned that was like for the higher levels and everything. But this is the first custom I ever had. I bought it with, like, I saved up lawn mowing money and chore money and all that kind of stuff. And when I graduated high school to try out at Fresno City, I actually bought this one. And this is kind of what like sparked my interest and like my love for baseball gloves and everything like that. It also happens to be around the time that I was, stopped playing. So I guess like it all happened all at the same time. But this is an EL3. It's a Wilson A2000. And like, I didn't have an idea that I was going to love this exact colorway whenever I made it, but it just so happened that I put this one together and got it in person, and I was like, yeah, this is beautiful. So this was the very first one that sparked the interest. I was actually lucky enough. So the EL3 stands for Evan Longoria. This is his like signature model through Wilson, and I was actually lucky enough to have him sign it.
That's pretty cool.
At Giants Fan Fest one year. But yeah, this is what started it all.
I was gonna say I had an A2000 in high school, and that was one of the, I think, the most popular gloves at the time. But the fact that it's Evan Longoria, and you talked about customization earlier, that's something that as we get into the, we were talking about the pros that are using these gloves on every day, they are customizing it to what they do well.
Yeah.
As well as what they need out of the glove. Right?
Exactly. So like the reason that I went with the EL3 model is because it's 11 3/4. I was playing third base at the time. Usually like third base, you're going to want to use like 11 3/4 to 12 inches. You need something slightly bigger than if you were up the middle playing shorter second.
Yes.
And so, Evan Longoria being a third baseman, I was like, that should be perfect.
Yep.
And so, yeah, a lot of times like guys will make something that fits whatever position that they're going to be playing.
For sure. So then from there, what do we have?
So later on, they came out with like custom A2K, because at the very beginning, you can only get custom A2000s. And the way that like Wilson and Rawlings work, they have like slightly differing glove lines, you could say. So A2K is supposed to be like a higher quality of an A2000. And so at the beginning, they were only offering custom A2000s. And I say beginning, this was around like 2017. A couple years later, they allowed you to customize A2Ks, which now you can do both. And there's even more options now. But this was like the first A2K, like really high quality glove that I was able to customize. And I actually was lucky enough to have Clayton Kershaw sign this one. So he doesn't sign for anybody. And all my Dodger fan friends are like, dude, how did you do that? And it's just, I was in the right place at the right time. And, at the time that I had this, he was the top pitcher in baseball. So I was like, there's no way I'm going to pass up this opportunity. Had him sign this one. Never really got to use this. I mean, before I had him sign it, there was opportunities for me to use it, but I just never had the chance to. And you might call me crazy, but I still play catch with these, even though they have signatures on them, and even though some of them are like really rare and valuable, I do use all my gloves, because it's like, what's the point of buying a glove if you're not going to use it?
Well, and it goes back to the purpose of what you said. You're not looking to turn these around. You're looking at the collection as a whole and what they mean.
Exactly.
Show me the one that means the most.
Okay, so these two I would probably say hold the most value in my collection. Omar Vizquel is my favorite baseball player of all time. He's who I started watching whenever I first was, old enough to understand the game of baseball. He was the shortstop for the Giants at the time, whenever we were living in Madera. And my Little League coach had said, hey, watch Omar Vizquel, watch his footwork. I was playing short in Little League at the time, so he's like, he's a really good, example of how you're supposed to play that position and everything. So he's the reason that I wore number 13 my whole playing career and everything like that. And I was actually lucky enough to pick this one up. There's a lot of, big collectors that are on Instagram and everything like that. And I was able to pick this one up off of a fellow guy that is on Instagram. And in 2021, when I was the visiting clubhouse manager here in Fresno, Javier Colina was the manager of the Visalia Rawhide. And he is also from Venezuela, just like Omar Vizquel. And I brought this in and I showed it to him. And I said, hey, Javi, did you ever get a chance to, cross paths with Vizquel? And he was like, you want to talk to him on the phone? And I said, what? And he goes, yeah, you want to talk to him on the phone? And pulls out his phone and FaceTimes him right then and there. So I got to show Vizquel that I had this. And he told me, he said he was with Rawlings his whole career, minus 1 year, and it was when he signed in San Francisco when I first started watching him. And he said he tried SSK out and wasn't really a fan, so he switched back to Rawlings. But knowing that he had this while he was in San Francisco when I started watching him is kind of insane. So for like him to be my idol and for me to have this is really special for me, as well as this Tim Lincecum issue. Timmy is probably my second favorite player of all time. I can't really think of anyone besides Omar that I hold above him. I got to watch him here in Fresno when he was a Grizzly. I got to watch him in San Francisco for a couple years when he was dominating and everything. Really, really wish that he had a longer career, but it is what it is. And so, yeah, I was actually able to get this from a buddy of mine up in Washington, and same thing. Like I just the opportunity to be able to have something like this and kind of like tell the story and everything is just incredible.
Well, that's pretty cool, and I appreciate the story. I think it's, I have two young boys that I've talked about before, and they're just starting out, and as they figure out what's comfortable for them and what they like, there's a level to that. But then there's also when you get to the end of your career and you just love baseball and having the appreciation for everything that goes in to playing the game, right? And I think this is pretty cool. Conlin,
Oh yeah.
thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Conlan Maguire, the Fresno Grizzlies clubby, one of the best experts, if not the expert on baseball gloves. We'll be right back with more In the Den right after this. Welcome back to In the Den, and a special guest who made his major league debut this year, Zack Veen. And Zack, for Grizzlies fans watching you from afar, you were part of the first Grizzlies team that was affiliated with the Rockies here in Fresno. How is the journey going?
Journey's been great. Feels like every year is something new and something new to learn, and uh, just loving every part of it.
Well, when you made your debut as a professional here in Fresno in 2021, you were switching coasts, and I've asked a lot of our current Grizzlies what it's like to start their careers on a different coast. For you, looking back on that, how did that help you get started in your journey?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool to go to the other side of the country and kind of just experience California and that whole league. And I thought that I got to say I went a bunch of different places, and I thought the stadiums were pretty cool too.
Well, now you're getting to see a lot of cool stadiums as well. You made your major league debut on April 8th. Now being on the other side of that, what was that like, and what did you get from that experience?
Yeah, it was it was definitely a dream come true to be able to play up there, and everything is as a major league as it gets. So it was really cool.
Well, it's also cool. We saw you get your first hit in that game. We saw you get your first big league homer on April 20th. Accomplishing those milestones, including the debut, how did that help you focus on who you're becoming as a player and a baseball player overall?
Yeah, I definitely want to be a major leaguer, and you got to play your first major league game to be able to do that. So it's glad to get that out of the way.
Fans in Fresno aren't surprised at your overall success. You hit 15 homers here. In hindsight, what do you look at finally about that 2021 season?
Yeah, I think back, it was a really good introduction to pro ball, and I thought that the way everything went, and the fans and the staff was great, and it was a really good first year to get into it.
Well, I mentioned from Port Orange, Florida, coming to Fresno. Do you remember any of the food? Did you venture out to find some good spots in the valley?
A lot of the best food was the food trucks that came in.
Well, we're getting ready to celebrate that, so that's a perfect tee up because we're gonna have tacos night on May 30th, and so I know we're looking for that. You're still just 23 years old, already over 1,300 minor league bats, already over 40 homers, already over 130 steals in your professional career. What do you feel like is the next step for you?
Uh, just continuing to you know I want to play every single day, and I want to be the best teammate I can be.
Well, we appreciate it on behalf of everybody here in Fresno. We're still watching you, pulling for you, and we're excited to see what's next. Zack, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so one more glove that I wanted to talk about today is this Zack Veen Rawlings outfield glove. This is actually the one that he used whenever he played here in Fresno. I was the visiting clubby at the time, and I just made, a couple stops in here, but I always saw it in his locker, and I always saw him using it out in the field, and, it being black and blonde really caught my eye. So I fell in love with it. Getting to see him use it out on the field was really cool too. And a couple of spring trainings ago, I actually had the opportunity. He gave it to a teammate of his who needed an outfield glove at the time. And, shortly after that, that guy stopped playing the outfield and didn't really have a use for it. So I was able to work out a deal with him and was able to bring it into my collection. And it's actually one of the ones that I use when I play slow pitch softball. It's pretty cool when I take it out there and guys see the name on it, and they ask me about it and everything. So getting to tell that story is really fun. But yeah, it's one of the more special ones in my collection.
Grizzlies opened up a 6-game series at Lake Elsinore, down 2-0 early. Grizzlies already had a run in the third when Robert Claus came up with 2 guys on base, drives an extra base hit down the line, scores 2 runs, and puts the Grizzlies up in front 3-2. That was in the third. Fresno's offense would add more, but it was Claus again going the other way off of the right field wall. And this was trouble for Lake Elsinore. Claus gets into second, an extra base hit, scores a run. That made it 5-2. Grizzlies would go on to win 12-3 on the series opener. LeBaron Johnson Jr. with a strong start, and the Grizzlies took the first game of the series. No respite on Wednesday morning as Fresno had to turn right around and play an 11 o'clock start time for a school day in Lake Elsinore. Marcos Herrera, though, took advantage, and the right-hander, making his first start, just 20 years old, was excellent for the Grizzlies. He used 4 strikeouts, went 5 innings, and ended up picking up the win, and the Grizzlies offense did him well behind him as he used those strikeouts as well as a double play to stay out of trouble. The offense, though, got going. Blake Wright, the single that scores a run in the 6th inning that broke the scoreless tie. That got Fresno on the board. And then later it would be Jacob Hinderleiter with the 2-0 lead. And Hinderleiter going shopping at the gap as he drives this ball deep into left center field. Hits it off the base of the wall. He sped into second base with the double. That would set up the 3rd run of the game, and Fresno would end up taking it 3-0 as Kevin Fitzer drives in Hinderleiter later in that inning. The offense was big on Tuesday, but it was clutch on Wednesday, and it helped get the Grizzlies the 3-0 win, and they took the first 2 games of the series. On Thursday, the Grizzlies offense, though, had a hard time getting going. Already down 1-0 on an unearned run. Everett Catlett making a scheduled start, getting some great defense from Tommy Hotvey, but that 1 run was the difference in the Storm's first win of the series. On Friday night, Robert Claus getting back to his RBI driving ways, and he started the Grizzlies off with a bang, a 3-run homer, 3 batters in. His 4th homer of the season, 4th homer since returning from injury as he continues to produce runs. Grizzlies with the early lead, and then Jimmy Obertop goes off of the wall as well. That scores a couple of runs. It was 5-0 in the first. It got to 6-3 before the bullpen ended up holding on. Tyler Hampu induces a double play with Lake Elsinore getting a little bit closer in the 8th, but Nathan Blasek would work the scoreless 9th for his California league-leading 7th save. Grizzlies got the 6-3 win. So the Grizzlies were assured the series split heading into Saturday night, but they were down 5-0 before the rally started. They scored 3 runs And then in the ninth, it was Daniel Obertop with the RBI double that cut the lead in half, made it 5-4. But the Grizzlies down to their final strike, 0-2 to Robert Kalaz, and he rips a 2-run double that flips the script on Lake Elsinore, gets the Grizzlies the series win. 2-run score. Tommy Hoppe so huge in that game with 3 hits. He scores the winning run, and then Fidel Ulloa locked down the ninth for his first save of the season. Grizzlies get their 4th win of the series. They take it 6-5. On Sunday, it was 0-0. In the first, a 2-out RBI single by Jacob Hinderleiter ends up scoring Tommy Hoppe. Grizzlies take a 1-0 lead. And then later in the inning, they would add to it as Kevin Fitzer would join the party. Fitzer rips a single into left field. That scores Hinderleiter. 2-0 Grizzlies. But some of the offensive momentum would run out. 2-run lead would be pretty much it for Fresno, as Lake Elsinore was able to get those runs back in the bottom of the first inning. They took the lead on LeBaron Johnson in his 5 innings of work, and then they really took it to the bullpen, took some of that frustration out over the course of the week, and after the tough loss, as Lake Elsinore wins on Sunday 12-3. Grizzlies get their first road series victory of the season, and now they'll be back at home.
Well, that'll do it for In the Den. Thanks for joining us this week. The Grizzlies are home. Hope you'll come out as they host the San Jose Giants. In fact, it is the longest homestand of the season over the next 2 weeks. There's 12 days, Tuesday through Sunday, and then Tuesday through Sunday that you can come see the Grizzlies at Chuck Chansey Park. This week we have Growers Night presented by Stamalus Produce. We have Christian Fellowship Night presented by Van G Logistics with a special drone show after the game. And next week on In the Den, we'll preview some of our fun promotions like Fresno Grizzlies Paper Company Night with Meredith, better known as Kate Flannery, the actress from The Office, and more. So be sure to check us out next week on In the Den.